Some details the market wants to know, although I should point out Dow Jones has also reported virtually the same things I'm about to tell you at this point, perhaps with a bit more detail from us as well. Key things here is, and you see it reflected to a certain extent in the moves in these stocks since the news has started hitting. We did not know, other than it being an all-stock merger of equals that was described in this press release telling us about the talks between the two companies, what the respective economics would actually look like. The market was assuming an MOE implied, well, it would be close to 50-50. It's not. In fact, the two companies have been focused on a deal in which they were dealing with the market caps as they stood before they became somewhat changed as a result of speculation about a deal. And so a 59% ownership of the combined company by Philip Morris International shareholders and 41% ownership by owners of Altria is what they've been working with. They are still describing it as a merger of equals, but the economics are clearly not equal. They are reflective of what was a far larger market cap at Philip Morris than at Altria prior to any speculation creeping into either one of the shares. However, it is a merger of equals on social and governance issues, meaning on management, which would be split between the two companies, and on the board of directors. Now, those talks continue in terms of focusing on who would be the CEO, the chairman, and down the line. They do not have, at least at this point, according to people familiar with the situation, full answers there, which is one reason why, while these talks did begin earlier this summer, I'm told they could extend at least for another couple of weeks before we see a deal. There does seem to be optimism, however, on both sides that a deal will be reached. The talks have been quite constructive in terms of dealing with these social issues, and so they do anticipate, barring obviously unforeseen complications, which do happen, particularly when you're talking about people's egos and the likelihood of who becomes CEO and not. But barring that, they should be able to get to a deal, it would appear, in the fairly near term. Not days, again, but as soon as, let's call it, a couple of weeks, we could see a deal. It's an enormous transaction, of course, creating what would be a more than $200 billion market cap company. It's a company that existed prior to 2008, when these two companies were split apart. But it was a very different market back then. And I'm told the strategic rationale for this deal is focused on the ability of this combined company to both save money in what is a declining category, obviously, that being the smoking of tobacco, but most importantly, to fuel innovation. Sarah, we were talking a bit earlier on Squawk on the Street about that. IQOS is their entrant, obviously, at PMI in terms of globally rolling out that smokeless system. Here in the States, Altria does own 35% of Juul. That's important. It's relevant, but they wouldn't take control of it. They can't do that. But it is about having a larger company with a larger ability to spend money on R&D to innovate for the next 10 or 15 years as things change so rapidly in this sector.
Philip Morris CEO Andre Kolantzopoulos has come on this program a number of times to talk about a smokeless future. He's going to phase out cigarettes, and they just want to go fully into this. So it's interesting that this could potentially be the next step there, and we'll see, I guess, to your point, whether he becomes the leader of it if they do merge. Yeah,
that remains unclear, but what will be clear is you've got similar leverage ratios at both companies, but you put them together, and obviously there is a larger ability for them to together focus on shared R&D goals as opposed to separately pursue them. And this is an area where there is going to be potentially a lot more innovation just beyond Juul and IQOS, which are the early entrants.